I stood there in the dim light of St. Mary's Chapel, the air thick with the scent of lilies and polished oak, staring down at Alex's face one last time. His skin looked unnaturally smooth under the mortician's touch, like a wax figure of the man I'd loved for 12 years. But his eyes, God, those blue eyes that used to crinkle at the corners when he laughed, were closed forever. The casket was open, just as I'd insisted, because I couldn't bear the thought of him shut away in the dark without me saying goodbye properly. Mourners milled about behind me, whispering condolences, their black suits and veils blurring into a sea of grief that mirrored my own. My hands trembled on the edge of the wood, knuckles white, as if I could will him back to life through sheer desperation. And then my phone buzzed in my purse, a low, insistent vibration that cut through the organ music like a knife. I ignored it at first. Who answers a call at their husband's funeral? But it kept going, the screen lighting up with Victor's name, my husband's boss, the man who'd handed me a check for funeral expenses just yesterday with that oily smile of his. I stepped away, heart pounding, and answered in the vestibule, the cool marble floor doing nothing to steady me. Sarah. Victor's voice was hushed but urgent, not a trace of the slick charm he usually wielded like a weapon. You need to see this. Now. Before you bury him. Meet me at the office 5 minutes. Trust me, it's about Alex. It's everything. My breath caught, a sob lodged in my throat. What could be so important that it couldn't wait? Was it papers? A final message? Or something worse? I glanced back at the casket, at the life we'd built crumbling into this moment, and whispered into the phone. What is it, Victor? Just tell me. But he wouldn't. You have to see it, he said, and hung up. In that instant, as rain started pattering against the stained glass windows, I felt a crack in my soul wider than any grief could explain. Would you have gone? Would you have left your husband's body cooling in that chapel to chase a ghost of a secret from a man you barely trusted? Because I did. And what I found out, it shattered everything I thought I knew about the man I was about to lay to rest. Let me take you back, because to understand why that call hit me like a freight train, you have to know how we got here. How Alex and I went from starry-eyed kids stealing kisses in the back of his beat-up Chevy to this nightmare of polished wood and unspoken regrets. We met in high school sophomore year in Mr. Hargrove's history class. I was the quiet girl with the messy ponytail and a sketchbook full of half-drawn dreams, always doodling instead of taking notes. Alex was the golden boy, tall, with that mop of sandy hair and a grin that could disarm a room. He sat behind me one day, leaned forward and whispered, "If you're going to draw the Boston Tea Party, at least make the Brits look as pissed as they were." I turned, cheeks flaming, and shot back. "Maybe if you stopped snoring through the lectures, you'd know they were." From there, it was on like wildfire. We'd sneak out after curfew, park by the old quarry, and talk for hours about everything and nothing. He wanted to be an accountant, said numbers were honest, unlike people. They don't lie if you know how to read, he'd say, tracing patterns in the gravel with a stick. I dreamed of being an artist, illustrating children's books with worlds where the broken things got fixed. We were opposites, but God, we fit. High school blurred into college. Me at the local community school for graphic design, him grinding through night classes at the state university while working doubles at the mill. We got married right after graduation, in a backyard ceremony with dollar store bouquets, and his mom crying into her handkerchief. "You're my forever equation," he joked during vase, slipping a simple gold band on my finger. And for 8 blissful years it was. We bought a little fixer-upper in the suburbs, the kind with creaky floors and a kitchen window overlooking a wildflower garden I tended obsessively. No kids yet. We were trying, but life had other plans, but we had each other. Mornings started with coffee and his terrible impressions of the morning news anchors. Nights ended with tangled sheets and whispers about the future. A cabin in the woods, maybe. Trips to the coast. Stability. That's what Alex gave me. Solid, unshakable ground. Then came the job at Kensington Financial. It was a coup, really. Alex had been slinging spreadsheets at a mid-tier firm, but Kensington was the big leagues, all glass towers and power lunches downtown. Victor Hargrove. Yes, same last name as our old teacher, but no relation, thank God, was the managing partner, a silver fox in his late 50s with a handshake like a vice and eyes that sized you up like a balance sheet. He hired Alex on the spot during the interview, clapping him on the back and saying, "Kid, you've got the eye for detail I need. Welcome to the family." I remember Alex coming home that night, tie loosened, eyes sparkling. "Babe, this is it. Base salary's double what I'm making, plus bonuses. We can finally start that college fund for the kid we're gonna have." I threw my arms around him, spinning in the kitchen until we collapsed laughing on the linoleum. For the first few months, it was golden. Alex would breeze in at 6, recounting wild stories about boardroom battles and Victor's legendary golf game. "He's tough, but fair," Alex said once, over takeout Thai. "Pushes you hard, but it's worth it." I'd nod, sketching logos for freelance gigs while he pored over reports. But slowly, the cracks appeared. The long hours started. 8, then 10, then midnight calls pulling him from bed. He'd stumble and exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, smelling of stale coffee and printer ink. "They got it," he'd mutter, kissing my forehead before collapsing. I'd rub his back, feeling the knots like twisted ropes, and ask, "Is it too much?" We could make do without the extra. But he'd wave it off. "Nah, it's temporary. Victor's grooming me for partner. Think of the life we could have: private schools, vacations in Europe." I believed him, because I wanted to, because love makes you blind to the ledgers that don't add up. The distance grew, though, like a shadow lengthening at dusk. Dinners became solo affairs. I'd eat in front of the TV, flipping channels to drown out the silence. Our lovemaking, once spontaneous and fierce, dwindled to hurried encounters on weekends, his mind elsewhere even as his body was with me. "What's eating you?" I'd press, curled against him in the dark. "Just work stress," he'd sigh, pulling me closer. "Victor's got this client, shady dealings, but nothing I can't handle. Promises a fat bonus if we close it right." Shady. That word lingered, a sour note in our symphony. I started noticing little things. The locked drawer in his home office, the burner phone he swore was for client emergencies, the way he'd flinch at sudden noises, like the crunch of gravel under tires in the driveway. Once, I found a crumpled receipt in his coat pocket for a hotel downtown, the kind with hourly rates and neon vacancy signs. My stomach twisted, but when I confronted him, tears in my eyes, he pulled me into a hug so tight it bruised. "Sarah, God no. That was a team meeting, Victor booked it cheap. You think I'd ever?" His voice broke, and mine did too. We made love that night like it was our first time, desperate and reclaiming, and I shoved the doubt down deep. But it festered. Arguments sparked over nothing, forgotten anniversaries, my nagging about his health. He started drinking more, whiskey neat after those late nights, staring at his laptop with a haunted look. "The numbers aren't lying," he'd mutter to himself, fingers flying over keys. "But what if they are?" I'd lie awake beside him, listening to the hum of the city outside, wondering if the man I'd married was slipping away, pixel by pixel. The accident happened on a Tuesday, the kind of gray autumn morning where the fog clings to the windshield like regret. Alex kissed me goodbye at dawn, earlier than usual, his lunchbox forgotten on the counter. "Love you, Sketch," he called, using my old nickname, the one from my drawing days. I smiled through the window, waving as his taillights faded into the mist. By noon, my phone rang at work, a freelance graphic gig at a coffee shop ad agency, and it was the police. "Mrs. Ellis? There's been an incident with your husband's vehicle. Single car crash on Route 17. He's gone, ma'am." The world tilted, the latte machine hissing like distant sirens in my ears. I drove to the hospital in a daze, rain slicking the roads, my mind screaming denials. Not Alex. Not my Alex. But there he was in the ER bay, sheet pulled up to his chin, a gash on his forehead, the only mark on his otherwise perfect face. The officer explained it matter-of-factly, fell asleep at the wheel, veered off an embankment. "No skid marks, no alcohol. Just exhaustion," they said. "It happens more than you'd think with these high-stress jobs." I nodded numbly, signing papers with hands that weren't mine, while inside, a storm raged. How could he fall asleep? He was meticulous, always pulling over if tired. But grief doesn't question. It consumes. The days blurred into a funeral fog, calls to family, selecting hymns, folding his suits into donation boxes that smelled of his cologne. His parents arrived from Ohio, his mom clutching rosaries and sobbing into my shoulder. He was our boy, she'd whisper, and I'd hold her, my own tears silent rivers down my cheeks. Victor showed up at the viewing the night before, impeccable in a charcoal suit, pressing an envelope into my hand. For whatever you need, Sarah. Alex was like a son to me. His eyes lingered too long, something unreadable flickering there, but I was too raw to notice. I just wanted the nightmare over. The burial. The finality. So there I was, back in that chapel on the funeral day, the priest droning about eternal rest while I wrestled with the impossible weight of loss. The call from Victor had come right after the eulogy, my words, choked out through tears, about Alex's laugh and his terrible pancakes. I'd stepped out for air, the October chill biting through my black dress, when the phone buzzed again. This time, I answered immediately, my voice a rasp. Victor, this isn't the time. Please just send flowers or something. But he was insistent, voice low and edged with something like fear. Sarah, listen to me. I know this sounds insane, but if you bury him today, without seeing this, you'll regret it forever. It's a video from his office computer, time-stamped 2 days before the crash. He recorded it for you. He knew things were bad. A video? For me? My knees buckled against the stone wall, the rain now a downpour mirroring the flood inside me. What things? Victor, what the hell is going on? There was a pause, heavy as lead. Meet me. Now. Or I'll come there myself and cause a scene you don't want. I glanced back through the doors. Casket gleaming under lights, mourners rising for the recessional. My sister caught my eye, mouthing, "You okay?" I forced a nod, but inside, questions clawed. What had Alex hidden? Why now, when it was too late? I slipped out the side door, umbrella forgotten, and drove through sheets of water to Kensington's Tower, the wipers slapping like accusations. The lobby was empty, echoes of my heels the only sound as the elevator whisked me to the executive floor. Victor waited in Alex's office, our old haunt for holiday parties, pacing like a caged wolf, a laptop open on the desk. Sarah, he said, no preamble, gesturing to the chair. Sit. And brace yourself. I collapsed into it, heart hammering as he hit play. The screen flickered to life, and there was Alex, my Alex, hunched over his desk, the clock on the wall reading 2:17 a.m., 3 nights before he died. He looked gaunt, unshaven, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on his face. He leaned into the webcam, voice a urgent whisper. Sarah, if you're seeing this, things have gone south. Way south. I don't know if I'll make it out, but you need to know the truth. Victor. God, Victor's been using me. The audits, the big clients, it's all a front. Money laundering, offshore accounts, falsifying reports to hide kickbacks from those Russian investors. I started small, just crunching numbers like he asked, but it's fraud, baby. Millions. And now he's got me in too deep, threats if I pull out. Said he'd ruin us, drag your name through it too. But I can't do this anymore. I'm going to the feds tomorrow, anonymous tip. Clean slate for us. I love you, sketch. More than equations, more than anything. If I don't come home, fight for me. Expose him. The video cut off abruptly, Alex's eyes wide, like he'd heard a noise. I sat frozen, the room spinning, ball rising in my throat. He recorded that. I choked out, turning to Victor, who looked ashen, rubbing his temples. Why show me now? Why not before? Victor sank into the opposite chair, loosening his tie. Because I found it last night, scrubbing his files for loose ends. Alex was loyal to a fault. But he was scared, Sarah. That crash, it wasn't sleep. Brake lines cut, they said in the preliminary report. Quietly, I think he was onto something bigger. Brake lines? My mind reeled, piecing it together. The locked drawer, the hotel receipt, a drop sight maybe, the whiskey for courage. Alex hadn't been distant from me. He'd been protecting me from a monster in a suit. Tears streamed hot down my face, not just grief now, but rage, a molten fury that made my fists clench. You, I hissed, standing so fast the chair toppled. You pushed him into this. You killed him. Victor's eyes widened, but he didn't deny it. I didn't. I swear, but I knew he was cracking. If he'd talked. The confession hung, damning. That's where I was, folks, staring down the man who'd turned my husband's life into a ledger of lies, on the very day I was supposed to lay him to rest. The video looped in my mind, Alex's voice echoing like a ghost. Fight for me. But fight how? Walk away, take the check, let Victor bury the truth with Alex? Or burn it all down, even if it meant dragging our names through hell? I could feel the weight of it, the crossroads where grief meets vengeance, and in that moment, with rain lashing the windows like judgment, I had to choose. Before I tell you what I did next, what broke me open and rebuilt me in fire, pause right here. Hit the comments. What would you have done in my shoes? Ignored it? Buried your love in peace? Or grabbed the sword and swung? Tell me, because your words might have changed everything. I needed to hear it then, even if I couldn't wait. I didn't wait. The choice ignited something primal in me, a spark Alex had always seen but I'd never claimed, the artist in me who could envision worlds and make them real. Give me everything, I demanded, voice steady for the first time since the crash. Files, emails, the works. Now. Victor hesitated, glancing at the door like salvation might burst through, but my glare pinned him. Or I scream. Right here. Tell the cops about the video, the threats. Your empire crumbles before the eulogy's cold. He caved, fingers trembling as he pulled drives from a safe, stacking them like offerings. Hours blurred, me devouring documents in that office, piecing the puzzle while my phone buzzed with texts from the chapel. Where are you? The burial's starting. I ignored them, my sketchbook out, diagramming the fraud like a graphic novel of deceit. Arrows from dummy accounts to Victor's Cayman trusts, notes on the Russian payoffs disguised as consulting fees. Alex's notes were there too, frantic scrawls and margins. V knows. End it. By dusk, as the city lights flickered on, I had it, a dossier thick as a Bible, proof that could topple Kensington. But proof alone wasn't enough. I needed Victor to bleed. Confess, I said, hitting record on my phone, the video app glowing red. On camera. Tell me how you coerced him. How you maybe arranged the breaks. His face crumpled, sweat beading on his brow. Sarah, please. I didn't cut them. I wouldn't, but I told the mechanic to check the car. A warning. Alex was talking to the wrong people. It was supposed to scare him, not? He trailed off, but the mic caught it all. The coercion, the threats to frame me for complicity, the accidental sabotage that became murder. He was family, Victor whispered at the end, broken. I didn't mean, but I stopped him cold. Family doesn't kill. I left him there, drives clutched to my chest, and drove straight to the funeral home. It was late. The grave half dug, the casket already lowered on a mechanical whine, but I burst in, soaked and wild-eyed, demanding they halt. Not yet. I begged the director, a kind woman with pity in her eyes. One more day. Please. They agreed, for a price I didn't care about, and I sat vigil by the mound that night, whispering to the earth, I got him, Alex. Justice. For us. The aftermath crashed like waves on jagged rocks. First, the cops. I turned over the dossier and Victor's confession at dawn. Two stone-faced detectives in a precinct that smelled of burnt coffee and despair. They moved fast. Kensington's offices raided by noon. Victor in cuffs, sputtering about misunderstandings, to reporters swarming the steps. The news hit like a bomb. Headlines screaming, financial giant in massive fraud scandal, exec charged in employee death. My face was everywhere, the grieving widow turned whistleblower, interviews I gave through tears. He was murdered for doing right. The feds pieced it quick, brake fluid drained, tampered just enough for a failure on that foggy road. Victor's trial was a circus 6 months later. Me on the stand in a navy suit, voice unwavering as I played the videos, described Alex's haunted eyes. The jury took 2 hours, guilty on fraud, manslaughter, conspiracy. 20 years, no parole. Kensington folded, assets seized, but not before I sued the remnants for wrongful death, emotional distress, walking away with enough to burn the mortgage and fund that cabin we'd dreamed of. But money didn't heal the hollow in my chest. His parents blamed me at first. You pushed him into that job. But time softened it. His mom now sends sketches I make of Alex, framed in her living room. My sister moved in for a spell. Nights of wine and what-ifs, but I clawed back to life. Freelance boomed, clients drawn to my story. But I poured it into illustrations now, dark tales of shadows and redemption, books that flew off shelves. Dates? None yet. The bed still is side empty, but I talked to him there. Updates on the garden, the rain. Grief evolved from a scream to a quiet companion. And Victor? Last I heard, rotting in a cell, writing letters I burn unread. Justice, but at what cost? Alex is gone. Our forever cut short, but in exposing the lies, I honored the truth he died for. Looking back, that call on the funeral day wasn't a curse. It was the key to the cage I'd been locked in, blind to the bars. It taught me that love isn't just the light. It's the fight in the dark, the numbers that don't add up until you force them to. Hold your people close, question the shadows, and never let a suit like Victor Hargrove whisper you into silence. If this story hit you in the gut like it did me living it, smash that like button. Let me know you were Team Alex, Team Truth. Subscribe if you haven't, because I've got more tales from the edge, stories that remind us we're all one secret from shattering. And drop your thoughts below. What shocked you most? Would you have trusted Victor's call or walked away? Your comments, they're my vigil now. Thanks for being here, for listening to my mess. I'll see you all in the next story. Stay fierce.